Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen, to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Gallery. My name is Nuke, and this is Craft of the Cards. So this was meant to be the mid-month episode. That clearly didn't go as planned, but instead of a theory this week, we will be covering something very interesting. The new cards that just came out, came out a few days ago for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Like the revised version of Spellcaster's Command. I believe it's called Order of the Spellcasters. I am really hyped for this, honestly. Spellcaster's Command is one of the most interesting decks for me thematically when it comes to things, and from what I understand, it was actually decently powerful. So we have had two cards revealed so far, both of which I want to talk about from an art perspective today. We have a new pendulum monster, which is Endymion, the founding sorcerer supreme, and Daybreaker, the splendid magical knight. Now, both of these cards actually look pretty interesting. I'll be dealing with Endymion first, as it's a pendulum monster, which I actually really like. Pendulum monsters, for those of you for some reason not in the loop, are half spell, half monsters, which when placed in the spell and trap card zones in specific zones, gain the effect written on their text. Now, this one is actually pretty interesting. I'm going to talk about the effect first before I get into the art, because I just have the effects in front of me now. The pendulum effect is that you can remove 6 spell counters from the field, special summon the card from the pendulum zone, and then destroy cards on the field up to the number of cards you control that you can place a spell counter on. And if you do place spell counters on this card, equal to the number of cards destroyed. I really like this effect, and not just because it's a way for a card that is a spell to kind of summon itself to the field. I do love that, but beyond that, I do love also its destructive capability. The card's title is Endymion, the founding sorcerer supreme, and it has a massive field nuke effect that does match its level of destructive capability. Beyond that, the monster effect is also really nice. Being able to negate a spell and trap card on the field by returning a monster or a card you control with a spell counter to the hand, and not being able to target this counter with a spell counter if it has effects. And also, it can't be destroyed, and it's a really nice card. I love how it's able to protect itself and destroy things with the spell. It really matches that its kind of relation to Dark Magician. You know, these are the ultimate wizards of attack and defense, and now it's really starting to show. And I do love as well that when the card, when a spell counter is destroyed by battle, it gets you a spell as well. This just relates so heavily to spells and spell counters. I love it as a card. Beyond that, the art itself is decent. It has what I would say is modern Yu-Gi-Oh's most persistent problem, in that it's very busy. Things I like about this card are as follows, though. I do like the black and gold together on the outfit and the design. It looks very nice. I like also as well the kind of deep pink color they've used to highlight it. It's a nice color to go with it, and also it's kind of sharp, spiky designs, and the gems all help to break up the black and gold and make him seem a bit more magical, while also maybe being a slight reference to Dark Magician's kind of purpley outfit. Beyond that, the kind of ornate ring behind his back, which represents the dark magical circle. I do like how they've made changes, though. The stones of power seeming to be embedded as pink gems, and then the little power symbols as well. It's a really nice effect that I do like on the card. Beyond that, the white hair goes pretty well with it. It helps to make it seem like this kind of ancient, ethereal, and powerful thing. My main issue with the card as a whole, though, is like this weird gold ring it has instead of a staff. I'm really not a fan of how that looks and how that just seems as well. It's not as nice as I would have liked, and I would have liked to see like a proper staff for it to hold to give it that kind of imposing power. Beyond that, the background's fairly generic and fairly standard. It seems to be like a kind of summoning circle. Kind of going back to the pose briefly, though, I do like how his hand is kind of extended towards the front and it's blazing with this magical power. It seems to be very good and well done. I do like it a lot. So this card, in general, I'd say is pretty good. If I were to give it like a preliminary rating, I'd give it like maybe a 7 out of 10. I do like the art. The one element I really don't like is like the weird golden circle towards the side. I'm especially not a fan of how that seems to be replacing his staff. But the rest of the card looks decent. It's a bit busy, so yeah, it might. Honestly, no. I'd give this a 6 out of 10. It's just kind of above average. It is a bit too busy, and it's not clean enough for me to consider it pushing it up, because that is eventually what I want from this card. I do want a kind of nice, clean one. Daybreaker, the Splendid Magical Knight, though, I really do like as well. It has a lot more to like about it, in my opinion. The name matches very well with how the art is designed. It is Daybreak. It's a variation of Breaker the Magical Knight, that original monster which was so useful, and the Daybreaker seems to reflect itself in his changed outfit. It's much bulkier, which reflects his new kind of like Link status and the fact that he's a splendid knight, but the white and gold with the red cape and tabard and everything really helped to emphasize his new status. And beyond that, I do love the kind of gems studded in his shield, and his sword is nice, and I really do like that like green hilt they have. It makes it look really good. The one issue I will take with the art, though, is once again the pauldrons are kind of ridiculous and a bit too big, and the spikes that kind of come out under the pauldrons are a bit strange. Beyond that, the knee pads are a tad over-designed as well. It suffers from much of the same problem as Endymion, the Founding Sorcerer Supreme, does. It's just very visually busy, and I'm not a fan of that. Breaker, the original, was also fairly busy visually, but it also looked pretty good, and I liked it much more. But beyond that, the effects, once again, are also great. They've been really good about designing the effects for these. So if the card's Link summoned, you get to place a spell counter on it, which gives it 300 attack. If a spellcaster monster is special summoned to a zone this card points to, because this is a Link monster, you place a spell counter on this card, which is really nice. It allows it to accumulate those. Gains 300 attack for each spell counter on it, which is nice. It reflects the original effect of Breaker, but updates it for the modern game, while also making sense given that this seems to be a powered-up version of it. And it allows you to remove 2 spell counters to target a card on the field and destroy, which is also a reference to the original Breaker. Beyond that, the art is, as I said before, pretty good. I like the stones. They seem to have the sigil of like the like stones of power on them. The background is a tad strange, though. I don't really know what it seems to be. Once again, it tries to use like the logo of the stones, but it seems to try and like just repeat itself across the background, which for me is fairly boring, even if the gray does manage to kind of contrast fairly well with like the white and the gold and everything. Also, it seems to be shattering in the background, which I get it's supposed to be like Daybreaker, but in my opinion, they should have maybe done something a bit more sunlight related with this card and allowed it to be more interesting that way. Another element of the card I do quite like, though, is the kind of like white edge on the sword. You can't really see it too well, which is kind of a bad thing, but the white edge does help to kind of emphasize the Daybreak aspect of it, considering it's like this super glass-looking sword thing, and it just kind of reminds me of whatchamacallit, Dawnbreaker from Game of Thrones, Arthur Dayne's sword, which was like milk glass or whatever, and it was super cool. But yeah, in any case, this card would probably get something closer to a 7, though. It is still busy, but I do like it, generally speaking, more, even if it has some elements that I don't like. But the effect is also really nice this time. I do like how good it looks and how it works well together. But these 2 cards are pretty good, and I do look forward to seeing how they update a lot of the future cards for the new structure deck. I look forward to maybe seeing Defender updated, because that's one of my favorite cards from that archetype, and just generally speaking, I'd like to see the aesthetics of the old archetype and see how they adapt them to this kind of new Yu-Gi-Oh! Art style they've been making. In any case, that is the video. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like, favorite, comment, and subscribe. And remember to keep watching this place for updates on all my future videos. So, without further ado, this is Nuke, signing out. Have a good one, ladies and gentlemen.